On a warm summer morning, the sky over Washington, D.C. was a soft shade of blue that seemed to stretch endlessly. A bus rolled through the quiet streets near Arlington National Cemetery, slowing as it approached a long stone walkway. Inside the bus sat a group of military academy cadets, most around the same age, wearing clean uniforms and carrying the confidence of young people who believed they already understood the world. Among them was Cadet Tyler Briggs, a tall and athletic student with a bold personality. He enjoyed being noticed, and he often tried to impress others with his confidence and sharp remarks. This trip to Arlington was part of their summer training program. Their instructors wanted them to learn not only physical discipline, but also respect, patience, and understanding of the history and meaning behind military service. However, many of the cadets saw the trip as just another requirement, something to sit through before the more exciting training began. Tyler especially felt that he already understood everything he needed to know about honor and duty. In his mind, these lessons were things he had already mastered. The bus came to a gentle stop. The doors opened and the cadets stepped outside. The cemetery grounds were peaceful, almost silent. Tall trees cast long shadows across rows of white marble headstones, each marking the resting place of someone who had served. Some graves belonged to soldiers whose names were known. Others, however, belonged to those whose identities had been lost to time or circumstance. The air carried a certain stillness, one that encouraged every visitor to lower their voice and walk with care. The cadets followed their instructor along the stone path, their boots tapping softly. Some looked around with quiet curiosity. Others kept their eyes forward, unsure of what to feel. Tyler walked near the front, his expression neutral. He respected the idea of service, but he never felt deeply touched by ceremonies or traditions. To him, honor was shown in action, not stillness, and he struggled to understand how silence could mean strength. As they approached the tomb of the unknown soldier, the atmosphere seemed to shift. The tomb was simple in design, a white marble structure resting atop a raised platform. Though simple, it felt heavy with importance. It represented something greater than just a grave. It represented every soldier who had never been identified, every life whose name had been lost, every sacrifice that could not be individually acknowledged. The tomb stood for memory itself, and guarding it was Specialist David Keller. He belonged to the 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment, known as the Old Guard. This unit had served the country since the earliest days of its history, performing ceremonial duties with precision and deep respect. Becoming a tomb guard was not easy. It required months of training, hours of study, and the highest level of self-control. Every movement a tomb guard made had a purpose. Every step, every turn, every moment of silence was part of a tradition that honored those who could not speak for themselves anymore. Keller was a young man, but his presence seemed older, shaped by patience and responsibility. He walked his post in a slow, steady pattern, each step measured exactly the same as the last. His uniform was spotless. His posture was straight and unwavering. He did not look around. He did not show emotion. He did not allow distraction to touch him. To stand guard at the tomb meant to carry the weight of history on one's shoulders, and Keller understood that deeply. The cadets gathered near the designated viewing area, a respectful distance from where Keller walked. Their instructor reminded them to remain silent, to watch carefully, and to try to understand what they were seeing, not just with their eyes, but with their thoughts. Some cadets nodded and stood with attention. Others simply watched because they were told to. Tyler looked on with interest, but not yet with respect. To him, Keller looked like someone following a rehearsed routine, something practiced over and over until it became automatic. Tyler wondered what the challenge was. He did not realize yet how much discipline it took to remain calm, steady, and focused in every moment, day and night, through heat, cold, rain, and snow. The silence around the tomb had a unique quality. It was not empty or uncomfortable. It felt purposeful, almost like a language of its own. Visitors in the area lowered their voices to whispers without being told. It was as if the place itself reminded people to be gentle, to be thoughtful, to remember that someone was being honored here. The cadets watched Keller continue his measured steps. Tyler tilted his head, observing the guard's expression. Keller's face did not change. He did not react to the crowd. He did not seem bored, tired, or distracted. It was like he existed only for the task in front of him. Tyler felt something unfamiliar, curiosity mixed with confusion. He could not imagine standing so still and controlled for so long. To him, control was something shown through strength or quick action, not stillness. Their instructor began to share more information. He explained the training tomb guards went through, how they studied not only the history of the tomb but also the lives of those whose names had been lost. They learned the exact placement of every marker and memorized historical details to ensure they understood the significance of the duty they carried. The guard was not simply standing there to complete a job. The guard was promising every moment to honor those whose stories could no longer be told. As the instructor spoke, some of the cadets began to feel a quiet respect growing inside them. They understood this was not simply ceremony, it was devotion. They looked at Keller with new eyes, seeing him as someone who had chosen to serve in a way that required both heart and discipline. For Tyler, however, the shift was slower. He understood the explanation, but his thoughts still leaned toward questioning. He wondered how a person kept their mind calm during such stillness. He wondered how someone could maintain such control without becoming restless. The idea fascinated him, even though he did not yet understand it. The group eventually moved to a nearby area where they could ask questions. Some cadets asked thoughtful things about history, meaning, and tradition. Tyler stayed quiet, thinking. He did not speak because he had no questions yet that he could put into words. What he felt was more like a puzzle forming in his mind, one that he did not know how to solve. The visit continued quietly. The sun rose a little higher. The shadows changed shape, and Keller continued his steps, steady and sure, honoring every unknown soldier with each movement. By the time the cadets prepared to leave the area, something had changed inside Tyler, even if only slightly. He had come expecting to see another routine. Instead, he had witnessed a kind of discipline that did not show itself through force or loud commands, but through quiet dedication. He did not yet understand the full meaning of what he had seen, but the first seeds of respect had been planted. He walked back toward the bus slower than he had arrived, his expression softer, his thoughts deeper. The lesson had just begun. The next part of the cadets' training day involved a demonstration area near the cemetery grounds. The program was planned so the cadets could learn how different ceremonial units handled their equipment and maintained discipline. The air was still warm, and the quiet atmosphere of the cemetery seemed to follow them even as they walked away from the tomb. Many of the cadets remained thoughtful, still remembering the steady steps of Specialist Keller and the silence of the tomb. The demonstration area was open and spacious, with a smooth floor where guards usually practiced formation drills. Several members of the old guard were present, standing with calm focus. Their uniforms were neat, their posture straight, and their movements slow and deliberate. They were there to show the cadets the proper handling of ceremonial rifles, how to stand with precision, and how to move in unison without needing to speak. The instructor gathered the cadets around and explained that ceremonial rifles were not used the same way as field rifles. These were carried mainly for tradition, respect, and ceremony. The instructor emphasized how the guards trained to handle the rifles with great care, not because of what the rifles could do, but because of what they represented. Every motion was meant to show patience, respect, and discipline. The cadets listened as the demonstration began. The guards lifted their rifles slowly, one movement at a time, all at the same angle and pace. There was something calming about the way they moved, something that mirrored the same quiet strength they had seen at the tomb. The cadets watched closely. Some tried to mimic the guards with invisible rifles in their hands. A few giggled softly when their movements did not match. Tyler stood in the back, observing everything carefully. He noticed how every step from the guards felt connected to meaning, not just training. He wanted to understand the level of control behind their calm expressions. The thought lingered in his mind that there might be a kind of strength here that was different from what he had always believed. After the demonstration, the instructor gave the cadets an opportunity to practice with training rifles. These rifles were simple, safe, and designed only for drill training. The cadets picked them up one by one, copying the postures they had just seen. Some struggled to hold the rifles steady. Others moved too fast, forgetting the slow, measured pace required. Tyler held his training rifle with natural confidence. He had always been quick to learn physical skills, but instead of focusing on grace and patience like the guards had shown, He focused on trying to impress the others. He stood with the rifle held upright, a slight smile on his face as if he believed the exercise was easy. Some cadets glanced toward him, admiring his confidence. This only encouraged him more. The instructor called for everyone to form lines and practice together. Tyler positioned himself near the front. The guards demonstrated each movement slowly, asking the cadets to follow. Many did their best to stay synchronized, but a few fell behind or lost their balance momentarily. Tyler tried to move faster than the instructions, believing speed showed skill. The instructor noticed and reminded him to slow down. Tyler nodded politely, but his expression revealed that he still did not understand the deeper purpose of the exercise. He thought precision was simply a technique, not a mindset. A few minutes later, Specialist Keller arrived at the demonstration area. The cadets noticed him immediately. Even without speaking, he had a presence that encouraged stillness and attention. Some stood a little straighter when he appeared. Keller was there to observe the group and answer questions. He watched quietly for a moment, noticing how the cadets held their rifles and how they followed instructions. His eyes were calm, not sharp or judging. He simply watched with steady awareness, the same awareness he used when guarding the tomb. Tyler saw Keller and felt a sudden desire to show that he too could hold still and appear calm. He stood a bit taller, straightened his shoulders, and tried to match the same quiet composure. But the difference between the two was clear. Keller's calm did not come from effort. It came from understanding and practice. Tyler's calm came from trying to look impressive for others. The instructor asked if Keller would demonstrate one of the standard ceremonial positions so the cadets could see the difference between practicing the movement and embodying it. Keller stepped forward with a quiet nod. He lifted his rifle slowly, each movement clean and smooth, like water flowing from one shape to another. No motion was rushed. His breathing was steady, his eyes forward. There was no tension in his shoulders or his hands. Everything about him showed purpose without forcing strength. The cadets watched in complete silence. Tyler, too, felt drawn in. He tried to understand how Keller could make something that looked simple appear meaningful. It was not the motion itself, but the feeling behind the motion. The instructor then invited one of the cadets to try the same sequence beside Keller. Without hesitation, Tyler stepped forward. His expression was confident, and he held the training rifle carefully. He wanted to show that he could match Keller's precision. Keller stood beside him, offering no expression of competition or challenge. His presence felt steady and supportive. The instructor called out the count for the movements. Keller moved with ease, his motions flowing like they were part of his natural rhythm. Tyler began strong, his movements sharp and quick. But after a few steps, the difference between their control became noticeable. Tyler's hands shifted slightly. His balance changed. His pace grew uneven. The rifle wobbled just enough to show he was forcing the movement rather than guiding it. Keller maintained his calm rhythm, not speeding up, not slowing down, not reacting to Tyler's pace. He simply held to the tradition and the purpose behind the movement. When the sequence ended, the instructor thanked both of them. Keller stepped back into place, calm and composed. Tyler lowered his rifle, realizing his breathing had grown faster without him noticing. The demonstration ended shortly after, and the cadets were given a short break. Some talked quietly about how impressive the movements were. Others discussed how difficult it was to stay calm and steady. Tyler stood off to the side, thinking deeply. Nothing dramatic had happened. No arguments, no strong action, yet the moment felt heavy inside him. He had tried to show skill and control, but Keller's calm presence had quietly revealed the difference between performing for attention and performing with respect. Tyler felt something shift inside him. It was not embarrassment, it was realization. He understood now that the strength he admired did not come from being bold or fast. It came from patience, dedication, and a willingness to honor something greater than oneself. He looked toward Keller, who was now speaking softly with another cadet, answering questions with patience. Keller's steadiness felt genuine, not forced. It made Tyler think more deeply about the meaning of discipline than he ever had before. The day continued with quiet reflection. Nothing loud happened, yet something meaningful had taken place. A lesson had been shown, not spoken, and Tyler was beginning to understand. The day continued quietly after the demonstration. The cadets were given time to relax, walk around, or talk among themselves before boarding the bus again. Some sat in small groups discussing what they had learned. Others wandered near the tall trees, taking in the peaceful atmosphere. The cemetery had a way of encouraging silence without needing to ask for it. The rows of white headstones reminded everyone that this was a place of memory, reflection, and honor. Tyler walked alone for a few minutes. He wasn't upset, nor was he proud. He was thoughtful. He finally understood that the lesson he had experienced earlier was not about skill or appearance. It was about purpose. Every movement the guard made was connected to something deeper. Tyler realized he had always tried to be impressive, but he had never really tried to be meaningful. It was the first time he truly recognized that difference. The instructor called everyone together one last time before they returned to the bus. He wanted them to visit the tomb once more before leaving. The group formed quietly and moved along the path. This time the atmosphere felt different. Earlier in the day, many had arrived curious or casual. Now there was a sense of quiet understanding even in those who had not said much. It was clear that something had settled into their awareness. As they approached the tomb again, Specialist Keller was still there, walking his careful, steady pattern. The sight felt familiar now, but not ordinary. The cadets watched in silence. They did not need to be reminded to be quiet. They understood now. Tyler watched Keller with new respect. He saw the patience in every step, the commitment in the stillness, and the soft strength in the guard's posture. It no longer seemed repetitive. It seemed purposeful, gentle, and deeply meaningful. Tyler wondered how many days Keller had stood here, how many hours he had trained, how much of himself he had given to something that could never be fully explained in words. The instructor allowed the cadets to stand and observe for as long as they wished. No one rushed. The world around them moved slowly, as if giving them space to understand the moment in their own time. Tyler took a slow breath. He felt something inside him that he did not have earlier. It was not just respect for the tomb guard, but respect for what the tomb represented. It represented lives that had ended before stories could be told. It represented families who never received answers. It represented honor given to every unknown sacrifice. After a few quiet minutes, the instructor approached Keller and spoke to him softly. Keller nodded, and after completing his precise sequence of steps, he took a short moment to speak with the cadets again. This time there was no demonstration, no movement, just gentle conversation. One of the cadets asked him why he chose to serve at the tomb. Keller's answer was calm and steady. He explained that he had always believed in honoring those who came before him. He had lost someone close during service and felt that standing at the tomb was a way to show gratitude to all who had given something of themselves, whether their names were remembered or not. As he spoke, his voice remained quiet, yet every word carried weight. The cadets listened closely. Tyler felt the message settle deeply in his mind. He understood now that the tomb was not only a place to remember the lost, it was a place to promise that no sacrifice would be forgotten. After the conversation ended, the instructor thanked Keller for his time and dedication. The cadets nodded respectfully. They walked toward the bus, but they moved differently now. Their steps were slower, more thoughtful, as if they were carrying something with them that had not been there before. On the bus ride back, the group remained mostly silent. The instructor did not ask for comments or reflections. He knew the lesson had already been learned, not through words, but through experience. Some cadets stared out the window, watching the city move past. Others sat with their hands folded, thinking about the tomb, about the guard, and about the meaning of service. Tyler sat by the window, his face calm. He replayed the day in his mind. His first impression of the guard, his attempt to show skill, the moment he saw the difference between performing and respecting, and the quiet conversation near the tomb. The more he thought about it, the more he realized how important understanding is before judgment. He noticed that the idea of strength he once believed in had changed. He used to think strength meant being bold, confident, and noticed. Now he saw that true strength could also be soft, steady, and silent. True strength could be seen in someone who stood in place with patience, not needing attention or praise. When the bus reached the academy, the cadets stepped off and lined up for final instructions. The instructor spoke quietly, reminding them that lessons do not always come from loud moments. Sometimes the most powerful lessons come from quiet ones. The instructor told them that the meaning of discipline is not only in action, but in purpose. The class nodded, and when they were dismissed, they walked away slowly. That evening, Tyler did not join the usual conversations in the common room. He returned to his dorm and sat at his desk for a while, thinking. He didn't feel sad or overwhelmed. He felt aware. He understood that he had been given something important that day, a lesson that would influence him far beyond the academy. Tyler found himself wanting to learn more about the tomb, the guards, and the history behind the tradition. He began to read about how guards memorized not just routines but the names and stories of soldiers buried in the cemetery. He learned that guards kept their uniforms with care and practiced in every kind of weather. He learned that they guarded the tomb not because someone told them to, but because they believed it mattered. Over time, this new understanding changed the way Tyler carried himself. He no longer tried to impress others through bold confidence. Instead, he began to practice calm focus. His movements became more measured. His voice, once loud, became more thoughtful. He listened more. He observed more. He understood that every action could carry meaning if it came from the right place. His fellow cadets noticed the change. Some asked what had happened that day. Tyler explained simply that he had seen a different kind of strength, one that asked for no recognition. He said he learned that honor is not something you display. It is something you live quietly every day. As weeks passed, the lesson stayed with him. It shaped the way he trained, spoke, and led. It reminded him that respect begins inside, long before it appears in action. He understood now why the tomb guard never reacted with impatience or frustration. Their calm was not just a skill. It was devotion. Years later, when Tyler graduated and continued his own service, he carried the memory of that day with him. He remembered the silence of the tomb, the slow, steady steps of the guard, and the gentle lesson that no moment of respect is ever wasted.